Welcome to the YSPN Project, where Sikh values meet professional success. Join us on an exhilarating journey as we dive into the world of leadership, entrepreneurship, corporate success, all through the lens of our culture. From diverse backgrounds and various niches, we bring you the stories that inspire, the strategies that empower, and the wisdom that transcends industry.
Perfect. Hey everyone, welcome to the YSPN Project, a very, very exciting episode today with Sukhdeep Singh, or Elfresh the Lion, as he goes by as a musician. Obviously performed at the United Nations headquarters in New York, one of the content creators for change, I believe was the term on YouTube a couple of years back, and a huge icon in Southwest Sydney, across the Australian music scene, both in the Sikh community and obviously just in the music scene in general. And today we're going to dive deep into a few areas of interest, like someone who's looked at you as a personal role model in my own life. You know, there's definitely things I want to explore around Sikhism, around the music scene, and around your own journey. But let's take it right back to the start. What first brought you into music and rapping?
Music was always a part of the family household, but not in the way that I make music now. So growing up in a Sikh family, obviously Kirtan played a big part in our household, as it will with many Sikh families, just being the background, the backdrop, and also the forefront for how people connect. So that was always present. There was elements of, I guess, Punjabi music, Hindi music, just birthday parties growing up. My cousin was a passionate Punjabi music fan when I was in my early teens, and so he started up as a DJ, as a hobby on the side, and so that was around. My dad taught me how to play tabla when I was quite young, and so I'd accompany him playing tabla during Kirtan. So that was, I guess, the musical foundation. And then when I started going to school, whether it was in grade 5 or 6 in primary school, and then early grades in high school, my friends at school would introduce me to the music that they were listening to. And at the same time, I'd be at their house on weekends or whatever, and Video Hits, a TV show that would play music videos on in the morning for a couple of hours, or ABC Rage, which would play music videos as well in the evening. That would pop up here and there. And so I was just getting this kind of like mishmash of like different musical inspiration from, I guess, a Western music perspective, from school and from TV. And eventually I was introduced to hip hop music in high school, and that just blew my brain. Like, once I was introduced to hip hop music that spoke to me, I didn't want to venture anywhere else. I became obsessed, and I just listened to a lot nonstop, and almost immediately started trying to write my own music as well. That's how strong the obsession was.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like, again, that mixed match of cultures that came together, and in high school you had this moment of discovering hip hop and diving into this world. When for you though did that obsession turn into something that was a viable career path and a real option for your life?
Yeah, that was a long time later. That wasn't something that was even a part of the thought process for a long, long time. I mean, I started making music at 13, 14 years old, and by the time I even thought this was a possibility at being a career would have been my early 20s, So it was a long time after that. And so much had happened in between being 13, 14 to 20, 21, 22, different shows, different performances. I'd recorded a lot of songs. I'd gotten a lot of feedback, positive and negative or critical feedback, just to help improve my style and my sound. I'd figured out that by then that I was serious about this, that I knew the process that I was undergoing in terms of creating, and that I had something to say, most importantly, and I wanted to keep saying things in music, and I wanted to keep performing. So I had this drive and this hunger and this passion. And so, yeah, it was a long time after the very beginning, but when I made that decision, I didn't know, like how possible it was, and I had to really kind of like map it out, and work out how to do this from a business perspective, because it's one thing to like just make music and enjoy music and love music, but it's another thing to start a business. right? If you're talking about establishing it as a career. So there's a steep learning curve. Luckily, it was something I was really passionate about, which always helps when you're trying to learn something new.
Your first signing was with Elephant Records, is that right? Or Elephant Tracks? How do you say?
Technically, no. My first album came out on a development deal with a record company that my mate started called Vienna People Recordings. My friend Michael McGlynn, he started a record label and I was the first signing on that label. And then the success of that album led to my signing with Elephant Tracks.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. And just to tell the audience, where are you at right now? There's a label that you're with now, or group?
No, so I'm 100% independent at the moment, looking at releasing music independently through my own channels and setting up hopefully a bit of a platform for the future. So yeah, there's a lot up in the air at the moment, and that's I guess the nature of the changing music industry. But at the same token, it's the perfect time for innovation.
Well said, well said. I'm curious as well. You mentioned obviously it is a steep learning curve. It's something you had to do mostly on your own. Were there any real people who helped out, some key mentors, influencers, or role models, or just support people on that side?
Yeah, I had a lot of people helping me out, just like in various aspects and at different stages. And I think that's the thing about the journey is it's never just about the individual. It's always about those who come along and support the journey along the way and the wisdom they impart, and then how the person runs with it. From the very beginning, whether it was my parents who were the ones taking me to performances or, taking me to recording studios so I could learn or experience that, or, giving me the money to get to print CDs and have them ready for shows and stuff, like their support in the beginning, whether it was like early mentors who were just basically friends, who became friends who were in the rap scene and who had been around for a couple of generations more than me. Is so many of them, too many to name, but people who really just, would help me get better. Be like, okay, I like how you wrote this song. You always start the songs really strong, but your first verse is always better than your second verse, and your second verse and your third verse is always the least strong. So you need to get better at the consistency. Like a mate of mine, Sai One, used to tell me that. Or whether it was like, people like Tommy Rock who would tell me and teach me about live performance and like how to improve my stage presence. So I had so many people along the way just like show me things. And then there were probably people who, are not formal mentors in any way. I mean, none of these people were really formal mentors, right? Like
Mm.
these were just people who were there and who were around at formative stages of my journey, who would contribute to my process. I guess when I first started performing and touring a lot, I had a really strong team of a band, but a core team of the three of us was myself, Mira, and my DJ MK1. And especially those two just taught me so much. Being around them, both of whom had been around for a long time and had seen a lot, had seen people come and go in the music industry, they taught me a lot, for which I can, never repay, like just how much they taught me and still do. I'm still great friends with them. Yeah, a lot of people along the way just continued to share their wisdom, and still to this day, some people who do that. And obviously my producer, Michael McGlynn, for the first two albums that I worked on and released, he was such a huge part of that journey and that process and helped me find a style and a sound and a voice that was authentically me. And I wouldn't be where I am without him. And he passed away last year, so it's it's crazy to now be on this journey without him. But
Mm.
at the same token, like I learned so much. I'm still learning so much from him when I reflect on all our sessions, and all our conversations. So yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful response. The fact that condolences for the passing, but the fact that that person's still influencing the way you make music and shaping your journey, I think speaks volumes to your relationship with one another. I think something that was mentioned earlier in your response, and one thing I want to dive more into is I've always felt your music is quite pointed in its vision. You're clearly always trying to be authentic, to articulate a clear message, whether that was early on or even recently with something like CEO that was, I think, done a couple of months ago. What has sort of informed you in staying resilient to your authentic self? Like when people are giving this feedback and telling you, oh, you know, you need to reshape this style of your music, how do you know how to stay true to yourself and take in this feedback and keep growing at the same time?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It came for me, particularly early on. It was challenging because I didn't really know where I wanted to go or what was possible. At a certain point, I really just felt like I knew where I wanted to go. I didn't know how to get there, but I had a vision of like where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I just trusted my instincts and my intuition of what I felt was right for me and what was not right for me. At the same token, I put that down pen to paper. So at a certain point in the journey, I was like, okay, well, trying to map like what the possible opportunities are on this career path that are common. What are my like boundaries? I put that pen to paper basically. Am I comfortable? Like for a very obvious one, like I don't drink, don't smoke. However, a lot of musicians and artists will do partnerships or be sponsored by or endorsed by, say, alcohol companies. So just boom, straight away, boundary, not going to happen for me. So, that's a really obvious example. But then it comes down to like ethical choices around which companies and people that you want to affiliate and associate with. And I just tried to map that out, like, and just put some boundaries on who I on what I felt was right for me based on my values. And the same token, that just kind of happened like naturally with the songs that I wrote and that I write about, the topics that I write about, the lyrics that I want to express and how I want to express them. Every word is intentional. And I've never enjoyed making music that doesn't have a purpose. Like there always has to be some purpose, even if the purpose is like just to have fun. If that fun resonates with how I want to have fun, like again, resonates with my values, then it's like, okay, cool. Then that's a bottom line purpose. But if it's just like, let's make a song for the sake of making a song, I couldn't do it. I could do it, but I just wouldn't enjoy it. So then I'm like, why am I doing it? And then I would just stop myself. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it's not a thing for me. So I've always resonated towards like purpose, and again, that aligns with knowing, or trying to have some sort of a understanding of what I'm about and what my mission is, and then just kind of going from there, trusting my instincts, um, and then trusting in a higher power that I'm on the path that I need to be on, and that will protect me from the paths that I'm not supposed to be on.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something there at the very end of your response that I really want to dive into. Obviously, Young Sikh Professionals Network. We want to hear about the Seekers inside of your story and how it's influenced you in your journey. And maybe what we've heard as well from other people we've done podcasts with is this is actually something they don't get to talk about enough with their other interviews and things like that. So definitely keen to hear from you on this. I think for at least my takeaways, pen to paper, I think is a huge one, and getting your values down. And it's really interesting that you talked solely about values in that response, right? And not your outward appearance. And for those who aren't watching the video, I mean, you're a turban man with a full beard and being a proud, I feel like your image has only grown stronger and bolder in the time I've seen you in the music scene. Talk about embracing that Sikh image as an artist and standing out on that stage a bit more.
I remember coming across online a apparel kind of brand that was run by Punjabi Sikh guys from the US called Turban Inc. And they had a hoodie, and on the hoodie it said, "Why blend in when you're born to stand out?" And I love that saying so much. Bought the hoodie straight away. So much so over the years that every time it wore out, I'd buy a new one. One day I met the guys in the US when I was over there, and they gifted me one. So I think over the course of the years, I've had like four of those hoodies. But that really resonated with me because I think it appeals to something that is very inherently ingrained within Sikh ethos that I don't think we talk enough about, especially in a Western context. So, which is that if we examine Sikh history, there is not ever a victim mentality or mindset. And never is there this thought that we are a minority, so therefore, we need to be aware of that or think of ourselves as lesser or, adjust who we are, adapt to the times, whatever it might be, however you want to think about it, that ethos or that mindset is not there. And there's never because I'm a minority, I don't have access to X, Y, and Z. There's boundaries, barriers, whatever it might be. Instead, it's the opposite. It's the fact that we are a minority and a minority that stands out so much that our community, I'd say pride is the wrong word. If you look at it historically, I think gratitude is the other word, because it's a gift from our guru to be able to stand out. And it's very, very intentional for us to adopt this identity. And there's so many reasons as to why we have this identity. But the most simple reason that I've come to really appreciate is this is what our guru has given us, and that's it, end of story. And that, just appreciating that, what greater gift can there be but a gift from your guru? There's no comparison. I value that, and I understand that there's nothing greater to me in this world than a gift from my guru, then it really is a gift. Now, in an industry where people are trying their hardest to stand out and will do whatever they can to try and stand out, right? In music, people will, especially in hip hop, people will dye their hair, get, endless tattoos and crazy fashion sense, and say the most outlandish things to get media attention and so on and so forth, or to build a brand image and what have you. It's like, man, my guru has given me such a great gift that I don't have to do anything but to just follow their blessing, and I stand out. So boom.
It's beautiful
Job.
said.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when I came to understanding at a very basic level, when I first began in the industry, I couldn't articulate it to you how I did just then. But when I did recognize that this was a gift at a very basic level, then that was it. It was just no compromise. It was like, okay, that's just the way I'm going to roll with. That's how I'm going to roll with it. Yeah, it has been a huge blessing. People do recognize that it does obviously it does stand out, and that meant, that saying, "Why blend in when you're born to stand out," really just resonated and stuck with me so much so that I had to write a song called "Born to Stand Out," and that's basically the chorus, right? So yeah, man. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think it isn't an easy question to answer, but I think you've articulated it in a really clear manner. And I just want to touch a bit more around this side of things. You mentioned earlier that you really felt like God had kind of guided you on your path, or a higher power, right? Whatever you want to call it. Something I've thought about recently or this year a lot is the quote that you can't really understand life when looking forwards, but when you look backwards, all the decisions kind of come clear to you. But when you look back, are there pivotal moments that you think you were really guided on, maybe by a higher power, or you made a certain decision and it led you into the right sort of space?
Yeah, 100%. Everything is because of Maharaj, basically. And I can say that in the context of this interview because I know our audience is going to understand what I'm saying when I say that. I feel that every step on this journey has been a blessing from Maharaj, from Waheguru, basically, right? And I've had so many moments throughout the course of my career that I'm like, I could not tell you how the hell I got that opportunity. It's just, and there's no reasonable explanation for it. And the most obvious one was at age 21, I got to tour with Nas, who's a hip hop icon, on his first national tour in Australia. There was also Charlie Tuna from Jurassic 5 on that, DJ Qbert, one of the best hip hop DJs of all time, and MC Supernatural, who's one of the best freestyle MCs of all time, on that tour. Here I am at 21. I had not released any music commercially whatsoever. I'd done a bunch of mixtapes, demos, all stuff from my bedroom, and I'm on this tour. How the hell does that make sense? It does not make sense at all. There's no way I could have got that opportunity. That's a blessing from Maharaj. And it was that tour, it was at the end of that tour that I was like, I can do this. I can turn this into a career. And I really want to do this. This is a huge affirmation for me. And it wasn't an easy tour. It was an extremely challenging one, but it was such a great experience. But what a first tour to have. So yeah, look, that being my first national tour ever, Yeah, that's Babaji. So like, there's just there, I've got so many examples like that throughout the course of my career. Where I'm just like, I can't explain the UN thing. What the hell? Like I don't know how that happened. It just happened. Like it was a process, but it was being a part of YouTube Creators for Change and all that sort of stuff. But there's 50, 60 people a part of that program. And I'm the smallest creator who was selected as part of that program in terms of numbers and audience size and reach on YouTube. And they picked 4 people to go. You know, that's not me, bro. That's Baba. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, there's so many examples, so many examples.
I think, yeah, your career, when we look at it, or when you try and talk to someone who maybe isn't as familiar, you've gone to some really huge places around the globe, US, India as well, and obviously all around Australia. But I think something that's really authentic about you is you've stayed close and true to Southwest Sydney, right? It's a community that you always try to contribute back to, and I think you do a lot of efforts with, and obviously the Sikh community as well through things like the Sikh Youth Australia summer camps. What keeps bringing you back to Southwest Sydney and to the Sikh community if you look at them both separately?
Yeah, I mean, I still live in Southwest Sydney, so there's that. It's just home. It feels like home, and there's just so much work that needs to be done here in terms of building infrastructure from a music perspective to provide opportunities for like those who are coming next. So when there's great opportunity, why not contribute to that space as best as I can? So that's something I'm really passionate about. My family's here. So that obviously helps as well. I guess and it's just a great base to have, like lifestyle wise, to come back to from wherever it may be across Australia or around the world. It's home. It just feels beautiful. In terms of like Sikh community, it's I think I just feel like I just want to make like kids in our community happy. You know what I mean? Like I just want to give kids something that they can feel happy about and something that they can enjoy. I think that's it at the heart of it. Like I think if I as a kid had somebody who I could relate to, I guess musically, knowing that or doing something relate to somebody in some way, shape or form who was doing something that was just like really cool, then that I think would have made a huge difference to how I grew up. And I haven't had a perfect run, like in terms of like my battles with identity and not being fluent in Punjabi as a teenager for a big part of my life, to relearning and trying to really tap into that nowadays and in the last few years, and not always being proud to be Sikh either, as a teenager battling my, like where I fit in, where I belong and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely been on a roller coaster ride. So like, had I had something like, I guess, someone who could speak to that and someone I could relate to, it maybe would have made a bit of a difference. But at the same token, I just like, yeah, I just want to be able to give like kids something that they can enjoy and something that they can feel like that's theirs. They can have ownership over it and feel happy to be connected to something that feels like them as well.
I feel, yeah, it's a really important thing that you've said there, and it's something we sometimes we do lack as a community. You're growing up a young person, whether it's Australia or any other part of the world where you're not obviously the majority, you're a minority. You look for people who you can look up to, who can understand your struggles, and sometimes it's not necessarily your parents or the generation above, right? It's people who have been through a bit closer to you at a similar sort of time or place. So I think it's really important. I'm really glad. I think I was really surprised when you said happy, but make me happy. But it's so simple, right? It is really that. I think that's nailed it on the head. All right, I've got one more longer question, then we'll do some rapid fires and finish up. It's something you touched upon there, which is around having someone to look up to and speak to who's a bit older. I imagine there's a lot of youth, not just in our community, but in every community, right? Or people who are trying to pursue non-typical career paths, right? They've got a passion that's burning and they want to make something more out of it. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, look, I guess we come from a community that gravitates towards what it knows, right? And that's just the nature of being a migrant community, in that we have generations who have come who have really had to struggle to get to positions of, I guess, to establish themselves as a community, or have established themselves as people. So like there's a fear factor when something that is someone wants to embark on something that's not traditional. There is this kind of fear factor because we just don't know. It's like, is it secure? Is it safe? Is it something that's going to be too risky? And those are legitimate questions to kind of ask. But I would say that for a person who's wanting to walk down that path is like not to fight that against those conversations that may come from community or from family or anything like that, but rather to acknowledge those questions and figure out how you can like walk on your journey and take those people along with you so that they can understand. So for example, it's like if they don't understand it in the way that you're doing it, it's like, well, how can you communicate it in a way that resonates to their worldview? For example, so like with my music stuff, it's like, well, when I realized that talking about music and performing and this opportunity and why this is amazing, like wasn't working. It's like, well, what do they understand? Oh, well, we've got people in our family who've started their own businesses, but they're businesses that they understand, whether it's an auto mechanic or engineering or, whatever it might be, right? Or setting up their own clinics or practices and stuff like that. Okay, so they understand the concept of a small business. Let me communicate it that way, like let me get my understanding to a point where I can establish myself as a small business and then be able to communicate it that way. That made a huge difference, in just being able to like bridge that gap between community and family who didn't have an understanding. The other thing I would say is like, I guess for your own self is be strategic about what you do. So like we have big dreams, aspirations, and that's amazing. You need that, right? To push you, to drive you, especially if you want to innovate, you want to do something new, you want to do something that hasn't been done before. But think about how you can do it in a way that like you are also making like really sound decisions for you. So for example, I would say that for as long as you possibly can, whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is that you're trying to develop into a career, for as long as you possibly can, keep that as like as something that you don't rely on to make your sole income. And I say that because when the pressure is on and you're relying on that for a paycheck, it's no longer just this thing that you're passionate about. It's a thing that you rely on for survival. And if you can't cope with that frustration and the challenges of those ups and downs and the uncertainty, then you are going to lose the love and the passion for this thing as well. So for as long as you possibly can, if you've got another job, whether it's a full-time job, part-time job, and you're doing this and it's like helping you establish and keep a sound, solid base, like that you don't have to rely on this for income, you can experiment, you can like push the boundaries, you can be free to do what you need to do, then amazing, do it. You can like hire people, you can whatever it might be because you're not relying on that for income. That's amazing. And then when it's like it makes viable sense, you can project, okay, for the next 2 or 3 years, I'm solid. Like I could do this full time, and then that's enough security for me to jump and let go of this, then boom, do that. But I would say for as long as possible, if only for the sake of like that you are not putting a strain on the thing that you're most passionate about. That's probably a bit of advice I'd share.
Yeah, I think it's really important and good again because you've explained how to not have burnout, right? Or to lose your passion while pursuing it and making it bigger. I have another, I guess, longer question, and then the rapid fires. I feel like, I think 10 years since the One album, right? A long time spent in the music industry and obviously rising up in prominence in the ranks. I want to hear from you how you feel the Australian music industry has changed in the last decade and maybe where you see it going next.
Yeah, the Australian music scene's changed a lot. It's going to continue to evolve and change. When I started and I was making music, especially in the hip hop space, it was not colorful. It was not a lot of black and brown people in I guess who were being successful, right? But then at a certain point there was just a wave of an energy and the floodgates open, and now we have this amazing scene that has so many different styles and sounds and stories that is so rich. I think that's really, really important. But also now you have people being able to establish sustainable careers in music, which hasn't always been the case. So you have more people able to do that now than possibly before. The other change, I guess, is that, it's forever an evolving landscape in that the infrastructures are constantly being challenged. And that can be an amazing thing depending on where you sit, or a challenging thing as well, depending on where you sit. For example, record labels are becoming less and less relevant, or having to change their business models rapidly and figure out how they survive. But it also means that people don't need to rely on these kind of old structures, which may be gate-kept opportunities before. There's pros and cons to that as well. So we're in this space at the moment where everybody is trying to figure it out. You know, no one can tell you what is right for you at this particular point in time. They could give you some ideas, but you got to figure it out, basically. You know, there's no set way. And I think that's something that's different now. When I came up, it was very much like there's some formulas you can follow to kind of crack the industry and to get attention. You know, service your music to these media outlets, to these radio stations. Your album will have, or your singles will have, a lifetime cycle of this many weeks, this many months, this many, you know, an album. You could do a year and a half. Like when I dropped the one album, it was a year and a half cycle, meaning from when we dropped the first single to the finishing of the album campaign, you could do multiple tours across the country. You'd have different songs on radio and so on and so forth. Now that's changed so much. You can't talk about it in the same way. It's completely different. So yeah, it's changed completely. It will continue to change. In terms of the future, I don't know. Only Babaji knows what's coming in the future. I'm just kind of rolling with the punches, and I'm just trying to figure out what's best for me. You know, I kind of like, I got my blinders on to what everybody else is doing in terms of like what's working for them, because like I say, what works for them may not work for the next person. I think it's really about just trying to figure out what's best for you, and learning from maybe what other people are doing, but you've just got to figure out, you got to, you know, find your way, crack the code on your own for your own.
Awesome insight there, man. Yeah, don't actually know what to add on top of that one, but I think maybe the only thing I could say is I guess social media and technology is also changing, and that's definitely affecting the way music's now spread and people are consuming it. Okay, rapid fire question time. I got 6 here, so try and answer these, I guess, as short as possible, and I'll just hit you up with them one after the other. All right, first one. Why Elfresh, the line?
It's cool. That's gonna be as short as it gets. It's gonna be hard for me, bro, to keep them short. I'm trying, but it's cool. That's why.
All right. No acronym or anything that stands for?
There is an acronym. But that's not a short answer, bro.
You can take that. You can take out the acronym. Like, I want to hear the acronym.
So yeah, FRESH is an acronym. Stands for Forever Rising, Exceeding Sudden Hardships. It's why it's always in caps. And that definitely comes from a Sikhi warrior mindset mentality, which was something I really resonated with as a teenager. And so that to me is FRESH.
All right, awesome. Next question. Your favorite artist of all time?
I'm going to say J. Cole.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Next one. Your favorite part or aspect of Punjab, whether it's the weather, the food, something that you really like about Punjab?
Anandpur Sahib. Anandpur Sahib is just special. It's different. There's a
beautiful
energy. Yeah, just a different energy.
Beautiful. A Sikh historical story or figure that's really close to your heart?
Wow. Too many to name. You're gonna have to edit this, bro. There's gonna be a long.
I can edit the pause out. Take your time.
Yeah. Look, I'm gonna say Baba Deep Singh Ji, because their picture is right here in the studio next to me. And I see them there every day. And they're watching over me, keeping me safe. So I'm gonna say Baba Deep Singh Ji.
Response. All right. How can people keep their passion going even as the rest of their life gets really hectic?
Be curious, stay curious, and be open to always learning something new. There's a longer answer to this, which is kind of breaking a thing, but I met a scientist named Dr. Ove, and he's probably in his 80s, and he is working on a UN project to preserve the most important coral reefs in the world, knowing that global warming is going to destroy, I think best case scenario is like 85% of coral reefs anyway. And he's working on a project to preserve as much as we possibly can, knowing that coral reefs have a great capacity to heal, but we need to preserve the most diverse ecosystems. Anyway, that's the context. But when I met him, what I loved about him the most is that I think he's in his 80s, but he's just the most curious person. And I remember BSing to him and saying, "Hey, Dr. Ove, did you know?" And I can't even remember what the fact was, like the BS fact was. And he was like, "Really?" He's like, "Where'd you hear that?" Blah, blah, blah. He's like, And I was like, I tried the BS, and I was like, doctor, I can't play. You're like genuinely curious. I'm like, nah, I'm just talking crap. Like, he was like, oh, okay. But he was curious. He wanted to know, like, is this new information? Is this something I can learn? And, this is somebody whose expertise is phenomenal. So yeah, I would say curiosity, always be willing to learn.
Yeah, awesome. Just two more. Is there a family member when you were, I guess, breaking out and starting the music scene that you really wanted to impress and change their mind? And did that actually happen? And do you remember that moment?
Yeah, my dad. My dad, like many Sikh dads and Punjabi dads, is a few words. The encouragements I'd always get, the best encouragement I would ever give was like, "That's good," or "Good job." Changed when I got more of a feeling of him being proud when I got nominated for an ARIA award, and he had one of his colleagues at work be like, "Oh, that's your son. Hey, got nominated for this award." And my dad came home and told me all about it, and he couldn't hide the joy. So that was a really proud moment.
It's beautiful, man. Really beautiful. All right, last question. What can we look forward to hearing from you in 2025?
A lot of new music, definitely a lot of new music. It's been some time since I released new music, but 2025 I have a lot of new songs on the way, so I'm really, really excited to share them.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and to finish off, where can people, I guess, follow this new music release or keep in touch with you?
Yeah, look, I'd say the best bet is lfresh.com, l-fresh.com, and signing up to my newsletter. That's probably the surefire way to guarantee that you're going to see and hear it immediately. Social media, obviously, but algorithms, even if you're following me in our post, you may not see it. So I would say the email newsletter on my website is probably the best bet. But then, yeah, if you're more comfortable with all this, any other social media platforms, I'm pretty much on all of them. If you search Fresh the Line, you can find me.
Awesome, man. I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for your time and for diving really deep into some of your stories and sharing amazing insights. I'm sure our audience got a lot out of it. But that's it, man.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it. Hey, it's been fun talking to you.
Thank you for tuning in to the YSPN Project. Don't miss out on future episodes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search YSPN to stay connected with our upcoming physical events in Australia and New Zealand, virtual events, interviews, and much more. See you in the next podcast.